What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, former retired two-division world champion, superstar boxer turned colorful boxing pundit and analyst for ESPN and Top Rank, Timothy Desert Storm Bradley, he weighs in on the rumors and reports that legendary, iconic 8-division world champion, Filipino iconic superstar boxer Manny Pacquiao could be on the verge of facing undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the WBO welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Terence "Bud" Crawford. Timothy Bradley, well, he weighs in. He gives his thoughts when he was featured on Max on Boxing, and Timothy Bradley was asked about the possibility of this fight and his breakdown of the fight. And one thing immediately jumped right out at me is that Timothy Bradley, he stated that Manny Pacquiao cannot legally fight in the States right now. So he has to fight outside of the U.S. He says thus the reason why this fight will be taking place in Saudi Arabia or in Dubai or someplace of that nature, he stated because Manny Pacquiao cannot fight in the States. So that's why the fight is going to have to take place outside of the country. And Timothy Bradley, he stated that he's hearing that it's not going to happen. He says that he hopes that it happens. He says Manny Pacquiao is still a very, very high risk, risky fight for Terence Crawford. He favors Terence Crawford. He says, but Manny Pacquiao is still very, very high risk fight. He hopes that it does come to fruition. And Timothy Bradley, he stated the fight that everybody wants to see is undefeated, unified WBC, IBF welterweight world champion superstar boxer Errol Spence Jr., who is widely considered by many to be top 3 pound-for-pound fighters in the world, in which Timothy Bradley, he stated that Errol Spence Jr. is the best welterweight in the world. And the reason why he wants to see the fight with Terence Crawford because of Terence Crawford's past accomplishments, Terence Crawford's skill set in the ring. He's very familiar with Terence Crawford's skill set as he competed against Terence Crawford in sparring in the early days. And he says that he wants to see Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. It's a 50-50 fight. He says, but, a lot of things are going to have to change for that fight to come to fruition. But one thing, like I stated, was that he feels, and he stated clearly that Manny Pacquiao cannot fight here in the U.S. Now, I don't know if that's due to travel restrictions. I don't know what would be the cause and the reasoning, because Manny Pacquiao, his last couple of fights, his fight with Adrian Broner, 4-division world champion, superstar boxer, and his fight with Keith one-time Thurman, former unified WBC, WBA welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, those fights were here in the States. So for Manny Pacquiao to suddenly not be able to fight here in the U.S. Is thus the reason why he stated that it's going to have to take place outside of the U.S. And the reason why, Bob Arum is seeking investment groups. Bob Arum, legendary Top-ranked CEO and promoter. Bob Arum stated that, the investment groups outside of the U.S., they're looking to, fund the bill, put the money up, for this fight to take place. So with that said, Keith Thurman, fight was here in the States. Adrian Broner fight was here in the States. So it makes you wonder, why is this fight, why is Manny Pacquiao not allowed? Maybe it's due to the fact that, like I said, the travel restrictions. But one thing is also Keith Thurman's, Timothy Bradley, he stated that, stylistically, this is a fight that Terence Crawford needs to definitely be focused. He needs to be worried about this fight because Manny Pacquiao is no walk in the park. But at the end of the day, he says that he don't believe that this fight is going to take place. He says that he's hearing, a lot of reports that, it's going to be pushed off. Okay, it's not going to take place. He stated that he hopes it takes place. He also stated that he hopes the Errol Spence fight takes place. But it's looking like that fight is not going to take place. It was reported that Terence Crawford and Manny Pacquiao was heading to a June 5th showdown. And there's still hope because we know Manny Pacquiao, he did make mention that 2 fighters was on his list for his comeback fight. Last time we saw Manny Pacquiao in the ring was July of 2019 when he defeated Keith Thurman via split decision. And he stated that two guys on his list, his comeback list, was Terence Crawford and 4-division world champion Mexican superstar boxer Mikey Garcia. So he did at one time express that Mikey Garcia, he was leaning towards fighting Mikey Garcia more so than he was and leaning towards fighting Terence Crawford. But Terence Crawford still was a viable option, for Manny Pacquiao. But he stated that, Mikey Garcia is in the lead. Okay. So with that said, when all of the talk surfaced that we could get Terence Crawford and Manny Pacquiao June 5th, Manny Pacquiao, his team, they came out and they stated that, it's just simply not true. They also stated that this is something that Bob Arum also stated, back in 2020. Bob Arum stated that Manny Pacquiao had agreed to fight Terence Crawford November 14th, but it fell through due to the fact that, the investment groups that were willing to, front the money for this fight, fit the bill for the fight, they weren't happy with it because they weren't sure. They weren't secure because they weren't sure that the fans will be allowed in attendance to be able to get a return on their investment. So therefore, they pulled away from the fight. And so with that said, Bob Arum, he stated that they needed to replace Manny Pacquiao. Thus the reason why we saw former IBF welterweight world champion British superstar boxer Special K. Kell Brook fight Terence Crawford November 14th of 2020. This is a huge fight. This is a fight that Terence Crawford had been looking to secure for the better part of 6 years. It was being mentioned back in 2014. So that's 7 years because we're in 2021 currently right now. It's interesting that Timothy Bradley is stating that Manny Pacquiao can't fight here in the States. So it makes you wonder why Manny Pacquiao can't fight here in the States. Like I said, maybe it's travel restrictions. But if he's able to go from the Philippines and go over to Abu Dhabi, or he's able to go to Saudi Arabia, or he's able to go to Dubai and stage the showdown, then why wouldn't he be able to enter in the United States? That leaves a lot of people to wonder, right? So when Timothy Bradley, he stated that, it caught me by surprise, and Timothy Bradley said it's no walk in the park, right? And he stated that Errol Spence is the best welterweight in the world. This leads me to the next question is, what's next for Terence Crawford if he is unable to secure this fight between himself and Manny Pacquiao? If he can't get the fight between himself and Manny Pacquiao, and he's not going to get the next fight with Errol Spence, as Timothy Bradley, he stated that he's wondering, he can't wait to see what happens next after Errol Spence fights WBA super champion now, after Manny Pacquiao was relieved of the WBA title after he defeated Keith Thurman. Due to inactivity, they elevated the regular champion, which is Cuban star boxer Yordenis Ugas, to the sole WBA super world champion. So it's a lot of reports that Errol Spence could be going into a unification bout with Yordenis Ugas in July. Okay, so with that said, Errol Spence, then he's going to be the favorite against Yordenis Ugas. Should he beat Yordenis Ugas, he'll be a 3-belt holder. Then the super fight between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence has gotten even bigger, because at that point in time, now Undisputed is on the line. Okay. So with that said, Timothy Bradley, he says that, he wonders what's going to be next for Errol Spence after he gets past Yordenis Ugas, because there's really not much left to do. And he admitted, Timothy Bradley, he stated that Errol Spence is doing all the heavy lifting. He stated that Errol Spence is fighting a better opposition. He said he's fought the best welterweights out there. He's fighting a better opposition. And then he led into the reason being is because the PBC, Premier Boxing Champions, they're pretending as if Terence Crawford doesn't exist. So all the fights, the best are fighting the best on that side of the street. Okay. This is the same Timothy Bradley that stated that he didn't fight Errol Spence because they didn't do business with one another. He was on the other side of the street. Now he's saying that, they're pretending that Terence Crawford doesn't exist when he's on the other side of the street. Okay. So with that said, It looks like two-time welterweight world champion superstar boxer Showtime Sean Porter, it should definitely be in the running, because we know that Terence Crawford, he took to social media and responded to Showtime Sean Porter when Sean Porter said, listen, the best need to fight the best. Let's feed the fans the best fights. I want to fight at Terence Crawford, and he added top ranking Bob Arum. Terence Crawford responded by saying, okay, just stay on standby. He says, because you're really testing me. Then Keith Sean Porter, he responded. He stated, well, that's okay. I'll be ready. I hear you coming back in May, and I'll be ready. But obviously, Sean Porter had a turn of events. We seeing as though, he having some health issues, arise. So he's now said that he's good. He's healthy, clean board of health, and he's ready to go. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. But Timothy Bradley, he's saying that he's hearing that the Terence Crawford Manny Pacquiao fight is not going to happen. So we got to see what's next for Terence Crawford, because his choice of opponents is very, very thin. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed? Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon, and get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
Hey, this is Ebony Bridges, Blonde Bomber, and you're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.